Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great and following the 3 H's of the channel. In this video, I have some pretty intense encounters, so strap in, pull up a stump, and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. So this all happened a little over a decade ago. I was 15 years old. I grew up in a small town in Montana, I think a population of about 3,000 max. It was a very peaceful town, but it always had this eerie sense about it. I lived in the only house that was bad enough and cheap enough for my young parents to be able to afford at the time. My mom was struggling with various mental illnesses. They were never really treated because we were too poor at the time, and before it hadn't been a major issue. She collects dolls, but isn't weird about it, and in fact it's not related to her mental illness, it's just a weird hobby she used to have. She would always get them from garage sales, antique stores, wherever she could. The whole basement was filled with shelves of these dolls, and yes, it was as creepy as you can imagine. My mom only ever would really go down to the basement to add a doll to the collection. They were kinda disorganized. The uglier ones were always turned to face the wall. Which brings me to what happened. It was one night during the winter. I don't remember if it was storming or not, but the breaker tripped for the kitchen and the dining room. My mom sends me to flip the switch. She says, "Take the flashlight. I also need a new bulb for the basement lamp." It's around 9 p.m. The house is pitch black and silent, except for the wind and the creaky floor. I click on the stair light and I see why she wants a new bulb. It flickers like a horror movie. I feel watched while I walk down with my dumb little flashlight. I reach the bottom and open the other door. My heart stops immediately. Every single doll is turned to face forward. All the heads are aimed at the doorway and to me. I screamed, I was startled, and I ran up the stairs. I nearly tripped over my own 2 feet multiple times. I tell Mom, and she looks kind of confused and goes down to the basement with me, ready for round 2. My mom looks at the dolls and shakes her head. I ask her if she did this recently because I never go into the basement. Mom is a fairly prudish woman and just says, "Nope. This is all effed up," which was the first time I had ever heard her swear before. I get the courage to go over and flip the breaker, and I walk upstairs while Mom stands in the doorway. A few minutes later, Mom closes the door and walks up the stairs, shaking her head. I ask her, "Are you sure that you didn't do this during a manic episode or something?" And she says, "No, things have actually been really good for me lately." There's silence between us after that. About a week later, Mom gets a storage unit and moves all the dolls out of the house. I never really hear about the dolls again. Years later, I asked her what happened to them, if they were still in the storage thing, and she told me that she, as quick as she could, sold all of those dolls, and to be honest, I don't blame her. So a little bit about how I ended up in this situation. When I was 7 years old, my mom unfortunately passed away. My dad was declared unfit due to a severe addiction to painkillers. I ended up living with my uncle Eric, his wife, and my cousin Jeremy. So fast forward 11 years. I was 18, Jeremy was 20. I just graduated from high school. Jeremy tells us that he's rented a trailer for the 2 of us and our girlfriends. I ask where. He tells me it's on Vancouver Island. We get on the ferry and get to our trailer. He tells us that he's been planning this whole trip for a while now as a big graduation present. We're set to be there for 2 weeks. We have our trailer parked in a pretty secluded and heavily wooded area. The first 4 nights are absolutely uneventful, but fun. We swam in a nearby lake. We roasted food over the fire. We dicked around in nature and hiked. It was a good time. Around the 5th day or so, my girlfriend, Sam, comes running to us one morning. She's scared and pale. I ask her what happened. She said that there was someone in the bushes. I ask her if she saw anything, any identifiable factors. She tells me no, but that it was definitely a person. Throughout the day, there does seem to be this aura of us being watched, not with a malicious intent, mind you, but not a friendly feeling either. As the day goes on, the feeling of being watched is not able to be shaken off. There's times when it feels less noticeable, if that's what you could call it, but it felt like the eyes in the woods were simply not paying that much attention during those times. So, fast forward to that night, we set up the pit to make dinner. We're right in the middle of eating when suddenly there's this very faint noise. It's rocks being smacked together. It's almost undeniably the sound of rocks being hit against each other, but it's so far off. It's creepy enough that Sam bolts for the inside of the trailer and locks herself in. At some point in the night, Jeremy's girlfriend Hannah decides it's her turn to go to bed as well. After that, Jeremy asks me if I want to go out into the woods to explore the source of the noise. I tell him that that could be very dangerous. He tells me that that's part of the fun. He shows me that he packed a shotgun just in case of wild animals. We take our flashlights and head off into the woods. Now it was very quiet, but not the kind of everything stops quiet, just like an eerie silence, kind of silence where you're waiting in anticipation for something to happen. We explore for a good 15 to 30 minutes and find pretty much nothing. We head back, disappointed. Once we get back to the trailer, we head in and sit down for a bit when something does happen. A loud smack against the side of the trailer. We go out to see what happened. There's a huge-ass rock that got thrown at the side of the trailer. Jeremy and I shine lights into the immediate area, but we don't see anything. But there is the very obvious rustling of bushes and branches being snapped. Someone is running away. The next day comes. We head out into the woods again. Jeremy is still armed. We head for the direction where we heard the branches being snapped. Whoever it was that was out there just straight annihilated some bushes, like ran straight through them. At this point, I want to not go any further. Jeremy tells me that he'll go and find whoever's out there if I'm too scared. I try and reason with him, like what if it's some crazy person in the woods? We argue a bit, and I head back to the trailer. A good 45 minutes to an hour passes, and I hear someone running. But this time, it's Jeremy, and he's hauling ass. Jeremy fumbles as he's running inside. He's the palest I've ever seen him. He's aiming his shotgun from the inside and shaking. It's a few hours of tension as he seems to be waiting for what he ran from. After he's sure that who or whatever he was running from didn't follow, he's still rattled, breathing heavily. I asked him what happened out in the woods. He says, "Dude, something tried to grab me." I repeated, "Grab you?" He tells me that he only got the glimpse of a person, a big person too, as its hands were massive. He could feel the fingers draping over his shoulder. For reference, we are both 6'2". The grip almost tightened when he jumped back in panic and bolted as fast as he could run. He never got a good look at the face, but this person to him was quite tall, at least a foot or two above him at his estimate. The girls are frightened. I'm frightened. And Jeremy just keeps looking out the window to see if it came back to follow him. But nothing comes, and this goes on until we anxiously make dinner. Jeremy keeps the shotgun on him at all times now. Every little noise that he hears, there's a cause for him to start aiming. At one point, a small bird made a noise, and he obliterated it with the gun at point-blank range. But I digress. We're eating. Still no activity. It's around 1:30 to 2 a.m. now, roughly, when we're all woken up by this sound. Someone is howling or screaming or something. It's more like a bellow. This lasts a few minutes and then stops. There's some intermittent hollers as well. The hollers are short and high-pitched. The bellows are deeper. This continues on and off throughout the night. About a full week into our trip, we're terrified, scared, and ready to just go. It's this night that something new starts happening. The sound of something hard being smacked against a tree. Jeremy's educated guess is that it's some kind of large piece of wood, like a branch. This thwacking sound is harsh and violent. There's no way you couldn't hear it. Jeremy snaps off a branch of his own to start responding. The thwacking goes back and forth between the two of them for a bit, maybe 3 hours. After all of that, nothing. We're all unable to sleep that night. It's been about 2 days after that, and nothing has happened. We think that maybe we talked it out. This would turn out to not be the case. It's late one night, and we're preparing for bed when we start hearing some noise. It's rocks. Rocks of various sizes being pelted against the trailer. Jeremy grabs his shotgun and heads out, just itching to shoot at something. He starts shooting randomly. It doesn't seem like he ever hit anything. The rock pelting keeps going on for over an hour, stops, and then resumes. Like the bellows, this is also an off and on occurrence. The next morning, we start looking to see where this person could be hiding this entire time. We're not expecting to see it. There's this huge, fur-covered person, I guess. It's about our size, and it's staring us dead on. Jeremy lines himself up to shoot it. Not sure how or why, but he misses the shot. We get a holler for our trouble before it runs off into the woods. We tell the girls what happened. They're obviously freaked the hell out. Night comes, and like the nights before, there's violent thwacking of branches against trees. It's loud, and it's angry sounding. I say out loud, "Hey Jeremy, I think we pissed it off." The knocking stops. For some reason, we're absolutely scared shitless. After a few hours of complete silence, we hear a massive thud, and another, and then another. It's more rocks, bigger ones too. All 4 of us head out, Jeremy armed with a shotgun. The girls and I have flashlights. That's when Sam screams bloody murder. She bolts faster than a track star, her way back inside. Jeremy tries to take a shot. I grab the light that she dropped. He's massive, taller than the one that we saw in the daytime. The best I could compare it to is if you added a few inches to someone like Shaq. With what brief glimpse I got of its face, it's snarling, like it's pissed. My only thought is, shit, there's 2 of them. One smaller, and the bigger one. Those are the only 2 we can see, or the ones we know of. The larger one is bold enough to show itself. We do not sleep at all the next few nights. It's our last night before we go back. It's peaceful and quiet. We're all suspicious. As we're packing our stuff and leaving, we see the larger one in broad daylight. Just a brief few seconds though. It stares us down as we leave. We all get back home, and the first thing that me and Jeremy do, because our house is kinda in the woods, is lock all the doors out of fear. Me and Jeremy still had sleepless nights for months after that. Every little sound startled the hell out of us. The girls were like this too. A few years after what happened, Jeremy got into Sasquatch research. He's determined to shoot one. Me and Sam stayed together and eventually got married. Despite what all happened, I still enjoy the outdoors. I just carry a firearm on me now, and a knife, in the event that I see one of those things again. even though I hope not to. Alright, let me give you a story about something freaky that happened on my farm in 2012. I was a 17-year-old farm boy back then. Our place was about a mile from the nearest neighbor and 10 miles from the nearest town. My parents had taken a trip with my aunt to Vegas for a week and left me to run the place with the dogs. There had always been some weird stuff going on around the farm. Animals going missing, animals turning up, torn to pieces, weird tracks, all that stuff. Dad and Grandpa always told me that it was coyotes, but after I had gotten a bit older, they told me that there had also been sightings of bobcats and mountain lions back in the area for the first time in over 50 years, but the boys down at the DNR would never admit it, even with trail cam footage of them. At this time, I had been taking nightly walks for a couple of years, but never farther than the big lamplight would show. One night, I start walking and go away from the farm and the light. It was a full moon, and there was fresh snow on the ground. Everything was clear for miles, and you could see that it was almost like daylight. Something possessed my dumb ass to go out there in the middle of winter by myself. My dogs would usually come with me on little walks like this, but they were nowhere to be found. I figured they were out hunting little rodents or something, so I left without them. I walked the path along our empty cornfields and down the path that led to our pasture. It was about a quarter mile of a downhill walk. Down in this pasture, there is a canyon and a creek that runs through the whole thing. It goes from the end of our property all the way up to the next county. Inside of this, there is a pretty sizable forest with huge, old-growth trees that go all the way down. It was one of those places that was perfect to grow up near. I spent a lot of time down there throughout my life, and I've never had anything out of the ordinary happen there. I had my headphones in, and I was vibing to some Hammerfall. I was just enjoying how cool everything was and how lit up everything seemed. It was magical, even past the tree line. I figured that me being just over 6 feet tall and an overly cocky weightlifter, that I didn't have to worry about anything out there. So as you can imagine, dumbass me went down next to the creek bed in the middle of winter, alone and unarmed. Mistake number 1. I followed the creek for a ways until I ended up at a part of the bed where the banks and walls of this little canyon were angled to climb up, and there weren't any paths out. I stopped for a little bit and watched the moon and stars, just admiring it all. I don't think I'll ever forget how pretty everything was. About that time, I ended up turning my music off just to take it all in. I guess it wasn't cold enough for the creek to freeze all the way, and every little sound out there in this place just echoed on top of the little sounds of the running water. The whole place just made every one of my senses feel exaggerated. I stood there for about a minute or two when I started to get this horrible feeling in the pit of my gut, like the most terrible thing in the world was about to happen any second. I looked around a bit, and I didn't want to freak myself out over nothing, so I gave it a short time. This was mistake number 2. I should have just walked my ass out of there. At this point, I started to hear something moving through the snow and brush on the other side of the creek. The only sounds were those exaggeratedly amped up steps, causing the thin coat of the ice to crack and snap on the long grass near the shore. I won't lie, every horror story and terrible thing I've ever heard ran through my head, and I ended up just being stuck there, unable to move away, while this thing continued to creep out along the bank. I hadn't even seen it very clearly, and I just had the worst fear that I have ever had in my life to this day. Finally, this thing came out, and by God, I almost pissed myself. This big black dog-looking creature came crawling out of the creek on all fours. It was so big I don't even know how the hell it moved so quietly. It kept walking along in the open before it stuck its muzzle down in the creek and started to drink. I just stood there, glued to my spot. The whole place seemed to get darker with every second. About this time, I felt the cold for the first time that night, while this chill ran down my spine. And stupid me shivered. Mistake number 3. I had big copper buttons on my coat, and a couple of them brushed against each other. It had to be such an insignificant sound, but down there, it seemed like I had hit a tin roof with a hammer. This thing perked its ears up and raised its head to look at me. God, its eyes. I had never seen anything that green before. We stared each other down for a few moments, and then this thing growled. About this point, I finally snapped out of it and began to back away, trying to get out of this boxed-in space and away from this thing. This thing started to bare its teeth and growl more aggressively, and then I shit you not, it stood up on its hind legs, raising its front paws up to its sides. Only they didn't look like paws. They were like hands. I thought I was going crazy or something, but I kept slowly backing off, every step getting a little closer to the path leading out of the canyon and creek. But even then, I still had a long way back to the house. This thing just kept watching me, like it wanted me to just back away and leave for the first few steps. And then it started walking along the other side of the creek, matching my pace, just slowly stalking me out. I was breathing heavily, but somehow I managed to not lose my cool and run. I think if I had done that, I wouldn't have made it out. Finally, I made it to an open area and just had to get up this little hill and make it across the pasture. Then it was only a quarter of a mile and up another hill to home. I didn't turn my back on this thing, and I continued to back my way out and up the hill. This thing didn't seem to want to cross over the creek from the position it was at, but it kept walking. About the time that I had made it to the top and was looking down at this dog-man thing, it had made it to a more shallow spot down at the creek and began to cross. At this point, I knew I had to pick up the pace. I finally turned around and began quickly walking back to the pasture gate as fast as I could. I scrambled over the gate and looked back again. It was at the top, on all fours again, still watching me with those eyes and teeth. All that was between me and this thing was a barbed wire fence, a panel gate, and about 20 yards. That's when I heard one of the best sounds I've ever heard in my life. Loud patting coming across the field. All 3 of my dogs were coming at full speed, raising hell. I looked back, and this thing turned and stalked back down the smaller hill. I figured I was in the clear and took off like a rocket. I ran a quarter mile in nearly 4 inches of snow in winter gear. I passed my dogs on the way up, and they didn't stop or turn to meet me. They just bolted down the way after this thing. What felt like an hour of running up this hill, I made it back to my house, and I almost passed out on the floor. I locked the doors and ran to grab something to defend myself. I figured that my hunting knives weren't going to cut it, so I went to the gun safe. The only guns in the house are great-granddad's old double-barrel 20-gauge, a 22, a pump-action Remington, and a 30-06 with a box of 40-year-old ammo. I grabbed a shotgun and loaded 2 shells before shoving a couple of fistfuls into my pockets, and I just sat there in the kitchen with a death grip on this gun for hours before I finally heard my dogs barking outside the house. I looked out the window onto the porch and saw all 3 of them without a scratch. I dropped down to my ass and cried like a child, not sure what to think. I didn't want to go out there again, and I didn't until next morning. I stumbled out the door with the gun and looked around. My boys came up panting, with their tails wagging, and I loved on them and petted them until my body was numb from the cold. I made sure they got some hot meat that night as a thank you. I've seen this thing a few more times, but this was the first time. The only people who know about this are a couple of my closest friends, and now everyone here. It's a hell of a story. I don't live on the farm anymore at the moment, but that thing turned what was my little retreat into an absolute nightmare. So those were intense, weren't they? If one in particular stuck out to you, let me know which one it was down in the comments. If you have a story of your own, as always, I have an email in the description below. If you would like to donate to the channel, there is memberships and super thanks here on YouTube. And there's PayPal and Patreon links down in the description as well. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that if you haven't yet, that you'll like and subscribe. And like the video, comment on the video, share the video, all that good stuff that just helps the channel grow. And with all of that, I thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed pulling up a stump. Make sure to follow the 3 H's of the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.